Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital Today channel. The grand hall of the cathedral glittered under the soft, golden chandeliers, every corner meticulously decorated with white roses and cascading ribbons, the very image of a dream wedding, but the air was thick with attention that not even the most elaborate floral arrangements could mask. Willow, radiant in her ivory gown, clutched her bouquet with trembling hands, her knuckles white as she stared at the crowd gathered to witness the union she herself had once dreamed of celebrating with Drew. Yet tonight, the revelation she carried could change everything, the secret she had kept locked away in her heart, the truth that had grown heavier with every passing day, threatening to crush her under its weight. As the officiant's voice rang out, reciting vows that seemed almost surreal against the storm brewing inside her, Willow's gaze flicked toward Chase, standing tall and impossibly handsome, his expression caught between nervous anticipation and unspoken hope. It was in that precise, suspended moment that Willow felt the world tilt beneath her feet. The truth had to come out. The whispers in her mind collided with the pounding of her heart as she stepped forward, voice quivering but resolute. I have something to confess. A hush fell over the congregation, the collective intake of breath echoing like a drumroll in the cavernous hall. Eyes widened, some with confusion, others with dawning horror, as she lifted her hands to reveal the undeniable proof of her secret, her rounded belly, small yet unmistakable, a silent testament to the life growing within her. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like wildfire as she uttered the words that no one could have anticipated, words that fractured the carefully constructed illusion of this wedding. I'm pregnant, and Chase is the father. The tension hung so thickly that it felt as though the chandeliers themselves were trembling, and for a moment, even the air seemed to hold its breath. Chase, frozen in place, eyes wide with a mixture of shock, joy, and fear, instinctively took a step toward her, as if crossing the distance could somehow absorb the enormity of what had just been revealed. Around them, the guests struggled to find their bearings, some faces reflecting betrayal, others scandalized delight, and a few, in muted awe, as they watched the intricate tapestry of their lives unravel in a single confession. Willow's own emotions surged violently, a tempest of relief at finally speaking the truth mingled with a raw, almost paralyzing fear of what Chase's reaction might be, of how this revelation could change the trajectory of every life in that room. In the midst of the chaos, Drew's stunned expression barely registered, his jaw tightened, and his hands clenched at his sides, but the air between him and Willow had shifted irrevocably. Nothing about this wedding could ever be the same, and the choices made tonight would echo for years. As the shockwaves from Willow's confession rippled outward, another presence in the room moved almost imperceptibly, calculating, observing, and ready to capitalize on the chaos. Jacinda. She had inserted herself into Michael's life with a subtlety and precision that no one had quite recognized until now, weaving her influence into the very core of his world in ways that surpassed even the most ambitious expectations. Standing near the back of the congregation, her eyes glimmered with a mixture of curiosity, amusement, and strategic intent. Every glance she cast, every slight tilt of her head, carried the weight of someone who understood the art of timing, the power of silence, and the leverage of secrets. Unlike the others, Jacinda did not react with shock or empathy. Instead, she savored the unfolding drama as a chess player watches pieces move across a board, calculating potential outcomes, imagining the subtle ways in which she could manipulate the situation to her advantage. Her involvement in Michael's life had begun innocuously, a casual appearance here, a helpful suggestion there, each interaction layering trust and dependence without ever revealing the depth of her intentions. Tonight, as Willow's confession sent ripples through the social and emotional fabric of the event, Jacinda could see clearly how the upheaval might serve her ambitions. She moved slightly, positioning herself within earshot of Michael, who was himself distracted by the revelation unfolding before him, the edges of his expression tight with concern, confusion, and the beginnings of protective instinct toward those he cared about. Jacinda's timing was impeccable, as if she had orchestrated her insertion into his life with such finesse that even Michael himself could not yet recognize the depth of her reach. With every subtle gesture, she embedded herself further into his personal and professional sphere, each interaction creating a new link, a new dependency, a new lever she could someday use. Tonight, that leverage could grow exponentially, seated in the emotional turmoil that Willow's confession had sown. nurtured by the uncertainty and vulnerability that surrounded Michael and everyone who mattered to him. The emotional intensity in the cathedral reached a fever pitch as whispers and questions collided with unspoken accusations and stunned admiration. Chase, stepping closer to Willow, allowed his fingers to brush lightly against hers, a tentative but irrevocable acknowledgement of the life they had created together, the love that had persisted despite the pressures and secrets that surrounded them. The congregation seemed to hold its collective breath, watching the raw honesty and vulnerability of the moment, feeling the tremors of a new reality forming before their eyes. Some guests, unable to contain their curiosity, whispered behind hands and fans, analyzing every nuance of expression, every shift in posture, while others sat rigidly, unsure whether to celebrate the announcement or mourn the dreams that now lay fractured at their feet. Meanwhile, Jacinda's gaze never wavered from Michael, her mind cataloging the potential advantages of the chaos, her presence a quiet but undeniable force, her influence stretching further than anyone in that room could yet comprehend. She understood, as few did, that true power often lay in subtlety, in patient observation, in the ability to act decisively when the moment was ripe. Her insertion into Michael's life had been gradual, strategic, almost invisible, and tonight, with the emotional earthquake created by Willow's revelation, she had the opportunity to advance her position with minimal risk, leveraging the vulnerability of those around her without their awareness. The interplay of emotions, love, betrayal, fear, and hope, was a delicate web, and Jacinda moved within it like a master weaver, each subtle action calibrated to create maximum effect. Meanwhile, Willow, her breath coming in shallow gasps, felt a strange combination of liberation and apprehension. The secret she had carried for so long was finally out, yet the world she had known was irrevocably altered. She could feel Chase's protective instinct rising, his silent pledge to be present for her and their child grounding her amid the swirling chaos. Their connection, forged in private moments and shared understanding, now stood exposed in the glaring light of public scrutiny, yet it was stronger for it, fortified by honesty and shared commitment. Drew, too, was processing the reality of the situation, his composure tight and strained as he struggled to reconcile his expectations with the undeniable truth. The wedding, intended as a celebration of love and union, had become a crucible of revelation and transformation, where loyalties, intentions, and desires were tested against the unyielding backdrop of human emotion. Amid this, Jacinda's presence loomed like a shadow at the edges of every glance, every conversation, her subtle influence threading through the room unnoticed by all but Michael. She had watched, waited, and acted with precision, and the drama of Willow's confession had provided her with the perfect environment to extend her reach deeper into his life. As the evening unfolded, she would continue to observe, to adapt, to manipulate, all while maintaining the guise of benign interest, a confidant or a peripheral presence whose impact would only become evident when it was far too late for anyone to counteract it. Her strategy was meticulous, her patience unmatched, and her timing impeccable, ensuring that each interaction, each carefully worded suggestion, and each seemingly incidental act would secure her position more firmly in Michael's world than anyone could have anticipated. In the midst of this intricate dance of emotion, revelation, and strategic maneuvering, the cathedral's atmosphere pulsed with the energy of transformation. Lives were being irrevocably altered in a single, breathless moment, Willow stepping into the reality of motherhood and love with Chase, the guests grappling with the shock and scandal of the revelation, Drew confronting the consequences of past choices, and Jacinda maneuvering silently to insert herself more deeply into the sphere of influence around Michael. Each character, driven by love, ambition, fear, or desire, contributed to the complex tapestry of intrigue and emotion that defined the night, a tapestry that would continue to evolve long after the last words were spoken, the last glances exchanged, and the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place. The wedding, once a symbol of unity and celebration, had transformed into a crucible of secrets and power dynamics, a vivid illustration of the ways in which love and ambition, truth and deception, could intertwine to reshape lives in ways no one could have foreseen. As the candles flickered and the final notes of music played softly in the background, it became clear that nothing in this world would ever be the same again, that the choices made tonight would reverberate far beyond the walls of the cathedral, touching every heart, every mind, and every life entangled in the web of human complexity, leaving a legacy of revelation, transformation, and the subtle, inexorable power of those who know how to play the long game. The aftermath of Willow's confession was a swirling storm of emotions, reverberating through the cathedral like an invisible shockwave. Guests who had arrived expecting a serene celebration were now caught in a maelstrom of uncertainty, their faces a kaleidoscope of disbelief, sympathy, and curiosity. Some whispered furiously to their neighbors, trying to piece together the puzzle they had just witnessed, others sat frozen, unsure whether to offer comfort or step back cautiously. The grandeur of the ceremony seemed almost laughably distant compared to the raw human reality unfolding before them. Willow's hand remained in Chase's, their fingers entwined in a silent vow of unity amid chaos. The simple touch carried more weight than any vows or declarations ever could. It was a promise, not of perfection, but of steadfastness in the face of life-altering revelation. Chase, still processing the sudden weight of fatherhood thrust into the glaring spotlight, felt an unrelenting surge of protectiveness toward Willow. His mind raced through every possibility, every obstacle, every challenge that the future might hold for them both. The joy of knowing he was going to be a father was tempered by fear of the unknown, of how the world would view them, and of what repercussions this revelation might have on relationships already strained. Yet, in that moment, as Willow's gaze locked with his, he knew that no matter the storm, they would weather it together. It was an unspoken understanding, a silent pact forged in the crucible of truth. Meanwhile, Drew's reaction was a complex tapestry of emotions that he struggled to conceal. Anger, disappointment, and betrayal flashed across his features, tempered by the residual care he still held for Willow. He had imagined this wedding as a triumph of his love and devotion, only to have the foundation of his carefully constructed reality crumble in an instant. His mind wrestled with what this revelation meant for his own identity, his future, and his perception of the people around him. Every step, every gesture, every whispered comment from those around him felt like a judgment, amplifying the sting of humiliation and rejection. Even his attempts to maintain composure could not mask the deep fissure that Willow's confession had created in his carefully curated world. Across the room, the whispers of the congregation had grown louder, a chorus of speculation, judgment, and anticipation. The murmurs were punctuated by the occasional gasp or the rustle of fabric as guests shifted in discomfort or disbelief. But while the others reacted with overt emotion, Jacinda remained a steady and controlled calculation. Every shift of her gaze, every subtle movement, was deliberate, measured, and precise. She observed Michael, noting the faint tension in his jaw, the tightness around his eyes, and the flicker of concern that crossed his otherwise calm exterior. He had witnessed the confession, yet unlike the others, his reaction was layered with strategic thinking. Jacinda could see the flicker of internal questioning in his mind, the kind that made a person vulnerable, the kind she could exploit without appearing intrusive. Jacinda's insertion into Michael's life had been an exercise in patience and finesse. From the moment she appeared on the periphery of his professional circle, she had woven a network of influence that extended into both his personal and professional domains. Small favors, timely advice, and carefully chosen moments of support had established a sense of reliability and trust. She had become someone Michael subconsciously relied on, though he had never fully recognized the depth of her involvement. Tonight, as the emotional maelstrom around Willow and Chase unfolded, Jacinda could feel the perfect alignment of circumstances to extend her influence even further. The chaos created by Willow's revelation provided cover, distraction, and a natural opening to embed herself deeper into his life. Michael, feeling the undercurrent of tension, barely registered Jacinda's approach. His attention was divided, torn between concern for Willow, the implications of the revelation for Chase, and the ripple effects throughout their intertwined social circles. Jacinda's presence was subtle, a quiet force that Michael acknowledged only peripherally, yet the seeds of dependency were already taking root. She knew that by staying close, offering a listening ear, and appearing to align with his interests, she could solidify a position in his life that would prove invaluable in the days, weeks, and months to come. Her strategy was neither aggressive nor obvious, it was a slow, calculated encroachment that would yield far more influence than any direct confrontation could. Meanwhile, Willow and Chase had begun to navigate the immediate aftermath of her confession. They retreated to a corner of the cathedral, seeking privacy amidst the chaos, yet still in full view of the crowd. Willow's breathing was ragged, her heart racing, as she tried to reconcile relief and fear in a single, overwhelming moment. I didn't know how else to tell everyone, she admitted, voice trembling, eyes glistening with unshed tears. Chase, gripping her hands firmly, forced a reassuring smile. You did the right thing, Willow. We'll figure this out. Together. His words were simple, but the strength behind them carried a weight that settled some of the anxiety coiling in her chest. Yet even as the couple bonded over the shared acknowledgement of their new reality, the social dynamics around them shifted unpredictably. Friends and family, initially frozen by the shock, began to speak in hushed tones, exchanging theories, predictions, and judgments. The interplay of emotion, social obligation, and personal interest created a complicated web that could entangle even the most cautious participants. Every glance, every whispered comment, carried the potential to escalate conflict or reinforce alliances. The wedding, intended as a celebration of love, had transformed into a battleground of secrets, loyalties, and ambitions. In a more secluded corner, Drew's internal turmoil continued to simmer. He had to reconcile his personal disappointment with the public nature of Willow's revelation. It was not enough that his heart ached. The eyes of the congregation, the subtle judgments, and the whispers of those who knew the intricacies of the relationships involved amplified his sense of humiliation. His instincts told him to retreat, to regain control over the narrative, yet every step he considered was complicated by the undeniable reality of Willow's confession. The child, the bond with Chase, the undeniable truth, all were forces beyond his ability to influence directly. His struggle was both internal and external, as he tried to maintain dignity while confronting the collapse of expectations he had held so tightly. Jacinda, observing all of this with meticulous attention, began to assess where her next moves could have the greatest impact. She noted Michael's subtle reactions, the furrow of his brow, the slight tension in his shoulders, the way he instinctively scanned the room for potential crises. She understood that timing, observation, and subtle guidance could create opportunities to embed herself more deeply, to become an indispensable presence in his life. The chaos generated by Willow's revelation provided a perfect backdrop, a natural distraction that allowed her to maneuver without drawing suspicion. As the evening progressed, the dynamics in the cathedral continued to evolve. Guests oscillated between curiosity, empathy, judgment, and intrigue. Conversations branched into private corners, whispered confessions, and strategic alliances. Some sought to console Willow and Chase, others sought to offer sympathy to Drew, and a few were silently cataloging the events, storing information that could serve them in future interactions. The emotional resonance of the moment created a fertile ground for manipulation, strategy, and influence, dynamics Jacinda was keenly aware of and poised to exploit. Willow, despite her anxiety, began to feel a growing sense of resolve. The act of revealing the truth, painful as it was, had liberated her from the weight of secrecy. She could no longer deny the reality of her situation, and in doing so, she had taken control of her narrative. Chase's unwavering support provided a foundation of stability, a counterbalance to the uncertainty swirling around them. Their shared glances, subtle touches, and unspoken reassurances became anchors in a sea of unpredictability. Together, they faced not only the immediate reactions of the congregation but also the long-term implications of their revelation, the scrutiny, the judgments, and the societal pressures that were certain to follow. Drew, meanwhile, grappled with complex emotions that were impossible to disentangle. Anger, jealousy, lingering affection, and a sense of loss intertwined, creating a conflicted emotional landscape. He recognized that the situation was beyond his control, yet his ego and his sense of investment in the original narrative made acceptance painful. Every glance at Willow and Chase was a reminder of the new reality he had to confront, a reality that challenged his expectations and demanded an emotional recalibration he was only beginning to navigate. Jacinda, ever the observer, identified potential vulnerabilities and opportunities. She understood that Michael's response to the unfolding drama would be shaped not only by his concern for Willow and Chase but also by his instincts, experiences, and personal priorities. By positioning herself strategically, offering insight, appearing supportive, and maintaining proximity, she could extend her influence with minimal resistance. The subtlety of her approach was key. Direct interference could be perceived as manipulation, but quiet guidance and thoughtful intervention would appear benign, even beneficial. Throughout the unfolding events, the emotional intensity of the cathedral was matched only by the intricate web of social dynamics and hidden agendas. Every participant, whether consciously or unconsciously, contributed to the evolving narrative. Willow and Chase's bond was tested and solidified simultaneously. Drew faced the challenge of reconciling personal disappointment with public spectacle, and Jacinda advanced her position in Michael's life with measured precision. Each action, each reaction, each decision was interdependent, creating a complex, living tapestry of human emotion and strategic maneuvering. As the evening drew on, the initial shock began to give way to more deliberate responses. Conversations became more calculated, emotions more nuanced, and the interplay of motives and intentions more pronounced. Willow and Chase, though exhausted, maintained a united front, their mutual